When we first started teaching programs online at Graceland, as opposed to individual courses, we had a lot of heated, spirited discussions about participation in the online course. Some of us had been requiring that students participate at certain intervals throughout the week. Some of us felt like that was just ridiculous and there was no need to do it. One reason I wanted to do it was that I had experienced when I didn't do that, students procrastinating to the very last minute, and I felt like when I didn't require that, their online course was just this thing over here they had to do, and that they didn't really engage in the content as much as I wanted them to. It was more like an independent study than an online community. So we don't want students to feel like this poor guy, like, you know, they're waiting in line for our attention and we're the only one who can give that to them, which is going to happen if we don't set guidelines and set expectations for participation. We want them to feel like they're a group. They can lean on each other. They can glean each other's expertise. They're not in it alone. And so setting participation guidelines really helps. With participation, we can set firm criteria for frequency of engagement. That was something that, again, we had a problem coming to consensus on, and I'd say it took us like a year to come to consensus as a program that we needed to require students to come 4 days a week. 4 days a week. Then, of course, we have to assess it.
We have to let students know how they met the criteria. And then we have to let them know that at a time that they expect it, because otherwise it kind of feels like a sneak attack. We want them to know it. We want them to know that we're going to assess them. We're going to send this information to them at this time. And that way they're expecting it. It feels safe. It feels structured. We might have to teach the student the rubric that we're using for participation. And I don't mean teach it overtly. One thing that we did, giving them low-risk opportunities to meet it, we said, this is your participation rubric. You're going to be assessed in this manner. And so the first week of the class, we went back and we assessed it. We put a number to it, but it didn't impact their grades. So perhaps they had not met one criteria of the rubric. We gave them feedback on, this was what we were expecting, this is what we saw, these are the number of points you would have lost. Now, I'd like to see improvement this week. And as long as we get that feedback to them prior to their performance in the next week, then we should be able to grade their next week, because now they know what we're expecting. I'd say if we don't get that feedback to them prior to their performance in the next week, then it's probably not fair to put a grade to their participation. They need that feedback from us on how well they really did in meeting these standards. When students are discussing online and you see something that really meets your participation standards or the spirit of what you'd like to see in discussion, it's important to praise it and praise it publicly. What a great post. That's exactly what I mean when I say reflect real-world concepts. And if we see things that really don't do that or are very not appropriate to the discussion, it's really important that we address that privately in email with the student. And of course, always saying, I know that this criteria may be difficult because we're online, but this is what I'd like to see. This is what you did, and this is what the expectation was. In your handout, we have a participation rubric, which is just a sample that you can take for what it's worth. You can certainly adjust it if you wish, but it's just an example. And I know I have one. Here it is.
So this is just the rubric that we used, and it was refined over 8 years or so. You'll see, according to this rubric, participation is 5 points in each week. So it was 50 points overall in the class, and we only had 100 points in the class. So each week, and of course you could change this, you could make it fit whatever it is that you're doing if you wanted to do that. We had that they made posts 4 days during the week, 4 days, not 4 times, 4 days, because that allows them to communicate with each other over a period of time, build discussion, deepen discussion into certain concepts. We had that they posted questions and assignments early in the week. This is another that it was difficult for us to reach consensus on. For me, that was Tuesday. I wanted to see initial posts to the discussion board on Tuesday so that over the week, because our discussions ended on Friday, over the week I could see how they were responding to each other and interacting. I wanted to see that they had read the material, that they didn't post something that was completely opposite of the material. And because I taught graduate students who were often set in their ways, and because we were studying Glasser, who can be controversial even in the most, I guess, friendly environments, this was really important to me because I didn't want them to post there's no such thing as intrinsic motivation. I wanted them to post what Glasser said. And so that they build on the responses of classmates. This meant that they answered a question or they posted their initial response with questions, and then that they answered the questions to their classmates that their classmates had asked of them, but then that they went one level deeper into specific addressing the way that this content related to their lives, to their experiences. That they linked to their own professional experience, that they respected divergent viewpoints. I didn't want them telling each other they were stupid. I didn't think that would be very productive for the group. And these, if you're teaching undergraduates, they're going to be interacting with each other on Facebook. They're tweeting, they're texting, and they do get into habits concerning the way they interact with each other. So probably wouldn't have to use this much, but it might be nice for it to be there. I used a Critical Friends peer support group. So I put in the rubric that they help their critical friends align the assignment with the criteria for the assignment. I wanted their suggestions to their group to be directly related to the requirements. That they did provide suggestions for revision, that they were positive and professional. Again, this is one of those you might not use many times, but for the 1 or 2 times you might use it over 5 years,